Celebration of filmmaking, and an absolute joy for me to be up here to get to introduce these next group of folks. So without further ado, let me introduce the moderator for our next panel, Mr. Brad Wilkie.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here today. We're doing, our panel is using the right technology for your story. So I'd like to introduce our panelists. First here in line is Morgan Henry from Digital Kitchen. All right, then we have Mark Siegel from ABS. Joe Rubenstein is from Digital Bolex. And lastly, Alex Bono, Director of Photography for Saturday Night Live, Digital Shorts. All right, so the way we're going to get started this afternoon is we're just going to go down the line here, talk to each of the panelists, give a little bit of a give a short introduction, and then we're going to see an example of some of their work, and then use that as a bit of a jumping off point as we go through the panel discussion here. So, got my trusty notes here, technology in film right here on the iPad. So, Alex, you've worked on a number of projects over the years, most recently SNL Digital Shorts, but you've also produced documentaries such as Bigger, Stronger, Faster. You co-produced and shot Green Street Hooligans. And yeah, it seems like you've got a lot of expertise, especially practical expertise to share with us. So if you'd like to talk a little bit, introduce your reel, and then we'll go from there. So,
sure. That's the clip that I decided to run here is it's an SNL parody called Lil Pound Cake. And trying to pick one of the spots that we have done, I thought this was kind of fun, mainly because it's a great demonstration of, the kind of stuff that we do. We have so little time to turn things around, and this is a great example of, during the political debates, the issue of HPV vaccinations came up, in regards to Rick Perry, and we needed to get something on. If we were going to make fun of it at all, it had to be that week. And it couldn't be next week, it couldn't be 2 weeks, it had to be now. And so it's like within 2 days, you're like, come up with an idea, write it, prep it, shoot it, post it, get it on the air. And so and you'll see in the spot, and then, we can, I suppose, talk about it sometime afterwards. Yeah. The kind of turnaround time that we have to work at. And so in regards to technology, you can imagine we are so reliant and so enabled by technology right now, the speed at which all of our gear works. The only way we could do these things so quickly is because of, and thanks to technology.
All right, so let's roll Lil Pound Cake. All right, that's great. All right, so next down the line we have Joe Rubenstein. Joe graduated from Savannah College of Art and Design with a double major in filmmaking and painting. And you spent 6 years or so as an independent director of photography, and then went on to co-found or play a large role in Polite in Public, which is a photo sharing website. And then you use the exit money from that to work on Digital Bolex. So Joe actually has a mock-up here. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, this is the Digital Bolex CNC model. And our goal is to create a 2K raw shooting camera that's affordable for people that are in the DSLR price range.
Yeah, and so that is a mock-up, or is that actually a working?
This is a CNC model, so this is basically what it's going to look like and where all the features are going to be.
Wow. All right. Cool. Well, we'll get back to that and talk a little bit about your Kickstarter campaign and how that all went, because very interesting. I'm sure everybody obviously is aware of Kickstarter, but the way that people are using it to fund all sorts of different projects, I think, is opening up a lot of doors for independent filmmakers who don't have access to what would have been traditional financing sources. So, and next to Joe there is Mark Siegel with Advanced Broadcast Solutions. I see Mark has a very extensive biography here. So I see ABC, NBC, ABS. I want to make sure I get it right. So Advanced Broadcast Solutions. So Mark, you've been in the business for quite a while, and you can talk a little bit about that. I don't know if you have something to show us here, or just kind of give a little bit of an overview of how you've seen things change from your early days in the broadcast system and to kind of where things are right now.
Cool. So how many people know what film is? Okay. That's a good thing. Well, that's when I started. I was a graduate of USC Cinema School, but just as I was in school, which was like in '82, we started doing the transition to digital, or what we called video. Now you'd call digital. So we started recording this stuff on something called tape. Remember that tape stuff? Well, that's when we started. So my transition started going to the dark side. I started going into multi-camera and went into television side of the business, still adhering to the same principles of cinematic technique. Where do you put the camera? How do you use the technology? Those type of things. Currently, I've had a company since '92, and we provide primarily solutions to broadcasters. We sell tools to help tell stories. That's our tagline. It's about telling the story. Technology is very dynamic. It's moved very rapidly in the last 7 years at a much greater pace than ever had before. But the same principles apply. So as young filmmakers, you've got to apply the very basic philosophies of film in order to do that. You've got to tell compelling stories with good content. Technology will always change. I sell technology, I promote technology. That's what we do. But you've got to apply the same principles. So it doesn't matter what kind of camera he's got or kind of camera they've got. The tools will continue to develop at even a much greater rate. Last week I was at National Association of Broadcasters, which is the big technology conference in the United States here, and there was an introduction of 7 new camera technologies, all in the 2K and 4K range. That sounds like numbers. Don't get caught up on the buzz of the numbers of technology. I know that's what we're going to talk about today, but it's just technology. It's just a tool to help you tell a story. You could tell a story just as good with a little. I was talking to a young gentleman today that's got a flip camera, and he's sitting here, and I said, does that work for you? Does that tell your story? And he goes, yeah, I actually like it. And I said, that's fantastic. So, don't get caught up in the buzz of technology. Understand it. Most people only use 20 to 30% of the capabilities of the technology that they already have, because they don't have the time to learn it more. So take the time to learn it, use it to its full maximum capability. If you feel you have to move on, that's when you start looking for other things.
All right, thank you. And at the end of the line here, we have Morgan Henry from Digital Kitchen, a creative at Digital Kitchen. So worked on all sorts of things, television main titles, micro documentaries, transmedia, which we'll get into a little bit later, for organizations and companies like HBO, New Balance, BMW, Nike, and a whole bunch of others. Morgan's originally from, well, maybe not originally from, but did a lot of photography work down in Portland for about 10 years before joining Digital Kitchen. And Morgan actually has a BMW case study that he can introduce here.
Hi. Yeah, I think the case study that we'll show here gives a good example of the kind of micro documentary work that we've been doing in the past few years. And that's been the sort of work that I've mostly been involved in at Digital Kitchen over the last couple of years. And I think it's a nice jumping off point to talk about how we've been using technology and very available, off-the-shelf, inexpensive technology to tell the sort of stories that we want to tell. Why don't we show the case study, and then from there we can take questions.
All right,
kind of
we'll jump into our panel. So Digital Kitchen case study.
On a roll with doing this the last few years, and I think the one thing that I like to point out when we do these discussions is that the stuff that we use is all completely off the shelf. It's all, a lot of times I like to joke when I'm at film schools that what you usually have in your film school checkout area is 10 times more cool than what we have at Digital Kitchen. We have our insert stage is a 6x6 room downstairs, and our equipment is all pretty simple stuff. We rent lenses. We own a few 5Ds and a couple lenses. When we shoot, we use we use those. We have a 1950s Bolex that we get a lot of. When we're going for some of the footage you may have caught in the case study, kind of has a slightly different vibe when we're looking for things that are trying to call up memory or something a little different emotional pitch than what digital will give us, we'll pull out a Super 8 camera or 16 millimeter camera, and everybody does shoot, when we're, maybe not all the time. I mean, if we're on a subject, we don't want to have like, a crowd of cameras, but we all have people that are passionate and have a camera stashed away, and we'll grab some B-roll or something like that. So,
all right. Well, yeah, thank you. And I think that was great. How you talked about using off-the-shelf technology in a very DIY sort of manner, and the small crew. And that's something I'd like to ask you about, Alex. Is the small crew shoot, tight budgets, fast turnaround, something that you're very familiar with your work at SNL. And I was doing some research for the panel, and I saw you talking about title sequences for one of the most recent seasons. So I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through what it was like to be shooting on location in New York City with a small crew, kind of like Morgan mentioned there.
Sure. Well, the current title sequence right now, which I'm sure anybody who watches SNL has seen the current title sequence. It's been on for the last 3 seasons, and I shot that with a 5D Mark II. There's a little bit in there that's shot with a 7D, and then the most recent insert, we have a brand new cast member, and I shot that with a C300. So there's like 2 shots with a C300, but 99% of it is with a 5D Mark II. And the truth is that most of it, and the style of it is, it's very verite and getting pieces of action around New York. And that was just me wandering around at night by myself. And that's sort of the beauty of working with a camera like that. And I know a lot of people are walking around with DSLRs, and in case anybody's wondering, I mean, I think everybody knows this by now, is this good enough? I mean, that is what I'm using. That is what I shot the whole sequence with. That is what I shot a lot of commercial parodies with. We turn it into NBC, and they say, wow, this looks awesome. Let's run it. So yeah, the title sequence, me running around with a 5D Mark II for, a week and a half, 2 weeks. We'd get a cast member to do their little, turn and look at the camera. We'd have them for maybe an hour. And we're walking into just a location, and I've got one light. It's usually like a light panel right on the camera, and we just get it done as fast as we can. And so obviously in our case, and I think in the case of everybody, I mean, it's so much of what we do is about getting a lot of interesting footage, and then it's an editorial process.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So Joe, let's talk a little bit about digital Bolex here.
Sure.
So how did the idea for the product come about? What need did you see that you wanted to fulfill, and then how did you go about taking it from that idea stage and moving it forward?
So I was a low budget DP for 6 years, up until the HD revolution really landed, and I shot one feature film on HD and decided that at the time it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't fun for me anymore. And I went off and I actually started a photo marketing company that did very well, and I wanted to make a video booth. And we made a lot of custom hardware and custom software for the photo booth company. So I said, okay, what do I need for a video booth? And I was like, I need a camera that shoots 24 raw frames a second for under $10,000, and it just didn't exist. So I started getting into, well, what do I need to do to make one? And through my research in that, I realized if I can pull this off, there are a lot of other people out there that would be interested in something like this. Still photography has had RAW for a long time, and at very accessible prices. You pretty much can't buy a $200 or $300 point and shoot without a RAW option. But motion picture, the RAW shooting cameras were in the $50,000 and up range when I started this sort of process of exploring it, and I thought that was wrong, and that we should make one that is more accessible.
All right, thanks. Now, Mark, talked a little bit about the DIY filmmaking, getting the footage, editing it together, using that technology. But what happens when we're ready to broadcast it? So, we've got and I'm talking about more the traditional sense of broadcasting, kind of talk about that for a little bit. we've got the YouTube and Vimeo, but what if we want to get that out through some channels that you would be more involved in? Is it even possible? I was talking with Alex a little bit before the panel here, to put out a 4K output, a 5K output. Like, are we sort of getting ahead of ourselves on the technology side, or what does that look like now?
Well, in the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. When it comes to content, it doesn't matter what resolution you shoot it at. If it's garbage, it's garbage. However, in the broadcast arena, we really take those resolutions and knock them down pretty heavy. We crunch the heck out of them, and by the time it comes out through that little cable box, you're at 2.5 megabits. It's really, really teeny, and you're shooting at this whole range. But obviously, the greater the quality going in, the better the quality coming out, versus poor quality going in, poor quality coming out. As far as talking about technology and bringing this stuff in, we hear a lot about DSLRs, and I come from the traditional space. I'm a film guy, right? I sold AGFA and Kodak motion picture film, right? And those are real resolutions. Those are great resolutions to work in. But when you select these types of technologies, even though they give you a very different feeling, they're very good. I mean, the things that are compelling about what the videos that you saw here was the content, didn't really focus on the technology. What was interesting is how quickly they were able to gather the information and the ratios that you get to shoot at with these type of technologies. When in film we used to shoot 20, 30 to 1. Nowadays, sometimes you shoot 1 to 1 because you get to go back and look at it real quick and say, okay, that's good, it's good enough for the can, take it. You don't need all the heavy hardware. The light sensitivity of the newer technologies is phenomenal. The depth of field is phenomenal. There's so many very interesting technological things about it, but it does have a specific look. And I say it's an acceptable look based on the look that you're trying to achieve. Just because it was used, these technologies are used on this film or that film or that film, they may not move you the right way. I mean, still, the majority of the big screen films are shot in film, okay? It's just not accessible, affordable for the majority of us. But you can still create great content with these cost-effective technologies. You've got to remember, DSLR technology comes out of still photography, okay? Some of the DSLR cameras, and some people are going to go like, what is he talking about, are really not designed for movement or motion. They are fabulous when they are still. But when you start interjecting a lot of motion into the frame, that's when they start having technical issues. Blurring, jaggy edges, those things. And I don't care at what resolution you shoot them at on the DSLR side. You start getting into stuff like this, at the 2K and 4K resolution, that's a different story. But you're gonna start paying a little bit more for this than you are for a DSLR, right? Maybe not.
It's actually in the same price range, for
So,
around $3,000.
Digital Bolex. See, it even looks like a film camera. So what we do is so you produce this content, and you really got to think about how you marry technology with the message that you are trying to deliver. And it's all about the image that you want to project, or I'm not talking projection, and put out there. For documentary style, fantastic. I mean, you can really move around with some of these newer technologies very fast compared to traditional higher end production, where you need a lot of people, you need a lot of light, you need a lot of other stuff. Those big budget things, they're big budget for a reason, because they come out with a big budget result. When a DSLR full length motion picture comes out, and you can make $200 million off of it, fine. It's economically driven for that distribution. When you put those images up on a large screen, when you're shooting that on a screen that's 20 feet high by 60 feet wide, how that image responds to that type of distribution. Most you're going to be seeing a lot of cinemas going out of business soon, because they're ripping the film projectors out and they're starting to put in digital projection. That's a huge change.
Right. So, okay, now getting the 30,000 foot view right there. Let's bring it back down to some stuff that I think would be really exciting for a lot of the filmmakers in the audience here. I want to kind of open this panel up a little bit more to a more conversational style and ask you really, what are some of the exciting technologies that you know of out there right now that both help tell a good story, if that's possible, and also keep a low budget so you can really approach the filmmaking process from the DIY angle. So I'll just throw that open to anyone. And
I would say that I'm sort of coming from your era. I mean, I started in film, and then we started when I got to SNL in 1999. We were still shooting on film, and then throughout the 2000s, I kind of helped them transition and experiment in all these different formats. And so for me, I'm just really excited by DSLR cameras. I'm excited by like this camera, the fact that the C300 or there was a lot of stuff that we just saw at NAB last week. New cameras that are shooting really, really beautiful images. I mean, there was this era at SNL where we had to make this transition away from film because it was too expensive and because it took too long. Mm-hmm. It took too long to process the film and then get the film into a format that we could edit. And so we were shooting in these kind of really inferior formats like mini DV that just kind of looked like crap, but it was really easy to work with. And so I'm really excited about how good camera technology looks now, and it's so inexpensive. Even honestly, when I made a documentary not that long ago. I mean, 2006, we were shooting a doc with an HVX 200, which at the time was like the really cool brand new high def camera, and this camera was like $6,000. And now you could get 3 5D Mark IIs or 3 7Ds for that price, or you could get a whole set of, you could get a really nice package. And so the way that you can now shoot with a DSLR, the way that, how powerful programs like After Effects, the new CS6 Premiere, unbelievably powerful programs. And it's funny because one of the things that people, what do you guys cut on? What do you guys color on? And we cut everything at SNL in Final Cut, and I actually bet we're going to move over to Premiere. In terms of coloring, we color a lot of stuff in Final Cut, and I say that because we've obviously got the Final Cut Studio set, and we've got Apple Color at our fingertips, and it's a really great program that nobody knows how to use. And so it just sits there. And I tell people, man, if you want a job, learn After Effects and learn Color, because these are really, really powerful programs that you can own them, and they're so powerful. And you look at the girl with the dragon tattoo conformed their whole movie in After Effects. And so that's what's really exciting to me is that the exact tools that people making really big movies and people making television are using are the same exact tools that everyone in this room could actually be using as well.
Yeah, well, that's got to really resonate, I think.